friends, as stated in the part 1 of this series, delimitation involves redrawing electoral constituency boundaries to reflect population shifts. In order to reflect the population shifts, a census will have to be conducted, and there lies the nub. As of 1st January 2025, there are 990 million voters, which shows a 2.2% increase. Since India's demographics have changed dramatically since the 1971 census, the 543 Lok Sabha seats do not represent this change. It remains a mystery whether they will conduct the census this year, next year, or postpone it again for another 10, 20 or 25 years. Nonetheless, a redrawing of electoral boundaries based on the latest figures would lead to major shifts in parliamentary and assembly seat numbers. These changes will disproportionately affect states with varied population growth and electoral influence. North Indian states would benefit the most. India's most populous states, Uttar Pradesh with 80 seats, could gain an additional 15 to 20 seats because of its expanding electorate. Bihar's 40 seats may increase by 10 to 12. Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan may gain 5 to 7 and 4 to 6 seats respectively. Maharashtra's urban centers like Mumbai and Pune have experienced population surges that could translate to 5 to 7 additional seats. Conversely, South Indian states with effective family planning initiatives may see diminished representation. Kerala, with one of India's lowest fertility rates and an aging population, may lose 4 to 6 of its current 20 seats. Tamil Nadu's population control success may reduce its seats by 6 to 8. West Bengal's comparatively slower population growth may lead to a decrease of 4 to 6 seats from its present 42. Shifts in India's parliamentary representation may strengthen North Indian states and weaken the South Indian states in the parliament. The potential delimitation of Lok Sabha constituencies creates implications beyond simple numerical adjustments. It threatens to reshape India's federal balance and regional dynamics in lasting ways. The rising dominance of the Hindi belt presents perhaps the most consequential shift. The region's already more than substantial influence will increase further. States like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Madhya Pradesh will wield enhanced influence to reshape national priorities, resource allocation and policy direction. This could ignore or harm the interests of other regions, diminishing their ability to effectively advocate for themselves. Southern states face a paradoxical penalty for their development success. Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh have implemented effective population control measures. This has enabled them to achieve higher human development indices. But after delimitation, their proportional representation in Lok Sabha would decline. This is already fueling regional resentment and potentially weakening national cohesion. These states have already voiced opposition to delimitation on these grounds. They argue that it undermines federal fairness. The emerging imbalance has sparked an intense debate about India's federal structure itself. States facing seat reductions are increasingly advocating for compensatory mechanisms to preserve equitable representation. The proposals include financial incentives proportional to development achievements, weighted voting systems in certain parliamentary matters, or special provisions to protect regional interests. Some suggest constitutional safeguards to prevent demographic advantages from translating into disproportionate political control. India's looming delimitation challenge presents a fundamental tension between democratic representation and federal equity. To balance power shifts from population changes, consider a bicameral system. Under this proposed framework, India's parliament would embrace a more defined differentiation between its two houses, each serving distinct representational purposes or roles. The lower house or Lok Sabha would fully embrace proportional representation based on current population figures ensuring that states receive seats in direct proportion to their demographic weight. This would allow rapidly growing states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Madhya Pradesh to gain their increased representation. They would restructure the upper house Rajya Sabha to provide equal representation to each state, perhaps 4 or 5 members for each state, regardless of that state's population size. This transformation would ensure that smaller states and those with controlled population growth maintain a significant influence on national governance, particularly on matters affecting state interests. South Indian states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu would preserve their voice despite their proportionally smaller populations. This balanced approach offers multiple benefits. It honors democratic principles by allowing population-based representation in the primary legislative body while protecting federal equity through the upper house. It provides a structural solution to regional tensions rather than temporary political compromises. The system acknowledges both demographic realities and developmental achievements, thus preventing any state from being penalized for growth or progress. Adopting this model would require substantial constitutional revision. India's current system allocates Rajya Sabha seats proportionally rather than equally. The transition would demand extensive political consensus. Larger states' greater upper house representation makes this difficult. The existing method of indirect Rajya Sabha elections through state legislatures would require complete reimagining. Despite obstacles, this bicameral approach balances India's democracy and federalism. In the complex terrain of India's delimitation debate, a compromise solution can emerge. It could potentially satisfy competing regional interests while acknowledging demographic realities. This approach separates national representation from population changes while allowing state-level governance to adapt to demographic shifts. The cornerstone of this compromise is preserving the current distribution of parliamentary power. The 543 Lok Sabha seats would remain fixed according to existing allocations. This would prevent any dramatic redistribution of influence between regions. Similarly, the Rajya Sabha's composition would continue unchanged, maintaining the established balance of power among states in the upper house. The adaptability to population changes would instead occur at the state assembly level. State governments would redraw and reallocate constituency boundaries and legislative assembly seats based on current population data. States experiencing significant demographic growth, predominantly northern states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Madhya Pradesh, would see their state assemblies expand proportionate to their population growth. Conversely, states with controlled population growth like Kerala and Tamil Nadu would maintain relatively smaller assemblies reflecting their demographic stability. This two-pronged approach has many advantages. Its main purpose is to avoid the unavoidable political clash that would result from the Hindi belt gaining parliamentary representation at the cost of the South and the Northeast. A fixed national framework ensures that no region loses power in the central government. This approach maintains stability in national politics, avoiding situations where a handful of populous states could control parliament. This approach safeguards India's delicate federal structure while acknowledging the country's demographics. Redistributing state assembly seats is crucial because it improves governance where it matters most in the citizens' daily life. Key areas like education, healthcare, and infrastructure development fall primarily under the purview of state governments. Boosting the power of state legislatures in populous areas may improve representation and governance without upsetting the national balance of power. This compromise has its merits. but faces considerable obstacles. Heavily populated North Indian states could contend that Parliament creates national policies unfairly impacting their larger populations and that a freeze on representation silences their vote. The counter argument that more state representation compensates for the disparity holds weight, but it might not entirely satisfy states desiring stronger national influence. So it will be a struggle for more influence by the North Indian states, while South Indian states would resist that. Moreover, established regional political forces may oppose internal redistribution if it threatens their existing power structures within states. Financial incentives from the Financial Commission could encourage states to accept the redistribution plan, thus lessening this resistance. Several supporting mechanisms could improve this compromise further. A weighted voting system could give states with lower population growth more influence in the Rajya Sabha, thus ensuring more equitable representation. Reward states for good governance and development, not just population growth through financial incentives. We should establish a system for regular review to ensure that the possibility of adjustments after 2050 remains, thereby preventing any temporary measures from becoming permanent. This measured approach provides a gentler alternative to complete delimitation, thoughtfully addressing regional inequality. Its blend of stability and adaptability may create a framework capable of garnering the widespread political support required for successful implementation.